Hello and welcome to SHOWstudio. This is our fourth menswear panel season, Spring Summer 2017, and this is our only panel on Peachy. Actually, for Peachy, it's quite an unusual one because we're going to be discussing Gosha Rubchinskiy, who moved his show from Paris the first time. His decision, I think, was motivated, as he was saying, by the desire of doing something new and something outside the framework of Paris Fashion Week. So it's very exciting. And I think Peachy in general this season is a very exciting place because we also got Raf Simons showing tonight. So it's kind of showing this direction towards something more new and young and exciting, which is, I guess, is symptomatic for menswear this year in general. So I've got a great set of panelists today. And could you just guys introduce yourself, starting from you, Dasha?
Hey, I'm Dasha Selyanova from St. Petersburg, but I live here. I'm a fashion designer as well. And I design, my label is called ZZZ. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Timur. Was born in St. Petersburg, and I have a label called Timur Kim. We do gender-neutral collections.
Hello, my name is Tigran Karapetyan, and I'm brand manager for Timur Kim label.
Hi, I'm Wallace. I'm just a fan of Gosha's work, really.
Great. So I'm Anastasiia. I'm a London-based writer, and I'm chairing menswear panels this season. So we've got quite like a Russian-heavy panel today for a reason. I'm obviously really excited about this discussion and about Gosha's work in general. And as you might know, I'm Russian as well. I'm also from St. Petersburg, coincidentally. So I think Gosha is a really great. It's just a fascinating example of a designer who changed the way the designer could work in the 21st century and sort of the people's approach to the industry. I mean, in many ways. First of all, I think his work really changed the way people perceive Russia and post-Soviet countries in general and the whole kind of contemporary culture coming out of this region. But also it's an example of a designer who started from doing some prints on t-shirts, which he was doing like with his mates in Moscow, and he ended up in, I think in as much as around 8 years, I think, he ended up at PT with a brand which has to limit its stockists because it's wanted so much by everyone. And so like basically this fascinating enterprise backed up by Comme des Garçons. So I invited some Russian designers today, just because I think it's interesting to see what kind of creativity comes out of Russia apart from Gosha, because Gosha is obviously so well known, but he's not the only voice out there. So the guys, both Dasha from CCZ and Timur Kim, they work in London, and I think now it's just us guys to talk a little bit about the brand, so you could know where are they standing and sort of what are they voice and look at Russia and beyond. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Dasha, you could start.
So yeah, my label is 3 years old, and it's originally started as women's wear, but I think I kind of enjoy doing a bit of both now, because it gives a complete picture of what I want to say. Like it's more it's more complete just that by having boys in the show as well. But it's still, I like this look particularly on the girls because I think it's strong. It makes sense for me. And it's quite unisex. It's very concept based, I'd say. So for each collection, I rarely start designing with silhouette fabric or I don't know what else, how people do it, but I just I want to talk about what bothers me, I think. And so last 2 seasons was, for example, Spring Summer 16, which we see now. It's the theme was depression and anxiety. So I just created a fake antidepressant called Zonox, and the whole collection was based around the campaign for this fake antidepressant. So this campaign went onto the garments as prints, basically. And on that presentation, we were actually giving out the pills, like fake drugs. It was fun. I enjoyed it. And I realized I want to do more of that. And that's what I do it for, I guess, for that moment of when I can see it all together. I don't like making stuff. I don't like cutting the patterns. It's not my thing. But I enjoy seeing it all together and seeing it on people, seeing it in the environment that I thought it of initially.
Yeah,
So,
that's exciting. I also know that you sort of dress hip hop artists a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah, I like hip hop, so I'm glad that it worked out that way. And all
we
this
got this
amazing women.
Yeah.
Whereas it's cool. I mean, I would love to do more of that because it just, when I see what people choose it kind of gives me also more of an idea of what I do in a way, because sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure, like sometimes, and it's nice to see it on people like Amber Rose, for example, and others, but it's not what I do it for, but it's kind of, it's cool to see that people relate and that they have the same attitude to things in a way.
Great, thank you. So maybe now we go to Timur. Could you tell a little bit about your brand?
Basically, originally I've graduated from St. Martin's in May, back 2012. However, like over a year ago with my business partner Tigran, we relaunched the brand initially as a menswear, and then we moved to the gender neutral form. And the whole concept of the brand is based around narrative, my personal kind of like life story, and we mostly like advocate for the equality, for the gay rights, for the like social aspects, and each collection is not like developed by the seasons, but there are chapters in the book. Just like first season was a medical school, and it goes back to my time at school. Basically, I wanted to be a doctor. Then the next season, the chapter 1, Ice Ring, it tells basically a personal story about my love with an Orthodox priest. And the third collection, the Journey, it kind of like tells a story about kind of moving from Russia, from St. Petersburg when I was 16 to the new land, to here, to London, and sort of like exploring my own sexuality, like my own freedomness, sort of like my own creative path. And the collection is based around the idea of the patchworking of different textiles, sort of like referencing to the kind of like different levels of societies, current, future, past, richness, luxury, and affordability in the same piece.
Great. So it's great to see that in a way you guys share similar background we all share similar background in Gosha as well, but it's good to see your work is so different. So I basically invited Dom today so he would stop us from talking just only about Russian stuff, and just because, bring us back basically to the fact that he discussed Gosha and his impact on the fashion industry here. So I wanted to ask you how did you discover Gosha? What do you like about his stuff?
I remember he shot the video for Supreme. I think it was winter 14. They shot just a video in Russia. I think it was just called Russia. And it was a proper like gritty video. It was on like film, really pixelated. And it was I watched that and just thought it was one of the cooler things Supreme had put out, and then I found out it was by Gosha and was like, oh okay, then found out he made clothes. Had a look and really liked them basically. So it was just through other brands, I guess, and through his association with other brands, but it wasn't actually through seeing his clothes, it was through seeing his like artistic direction, because a lot of people like forget that he's a photographer more than a designer as well. So it was interesting like that I kind of found him through his photography as opposed to just seeing his clothes on someone.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned the whole gritty video, gritty aesthetics, because it's obviously a big part of Gosha's world, and I think also of the whole sort of post-Soviet, the whole kind of post-Soviet aesthetics, which is quite popular at the moment, because we see it partly like in work of Damnet, Vatman, we see it Gosha a lot. So I wanted to ask all of you guys, where are you standing on this like post-Soviet hype? What do you think of it?
Sometimes I don't think it's the post-Soviet hype. Sometimes to be honest, I think it's more like the global need for something, for simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
Like when things become too complicated, as fashion became, I believe, lately, and too sophisticated. I don't know, just there is a need for something that will just take us back to basics, pretty much.
It's basically taking back to something new, literally, something that hasn't been seen in the world yet, like post-Soviet things. So like we had the whole country was sort of like closed from the whole world, and now we kind of like we want to express all what's been carried inside us for such a long time, I think.
Yeah, probably, but I don't know. I think like easily it could be any other country also to offer that. It's probably that Russia was a bit
like
a lot more kind of isolated.
Isolated, yeah.
But we just happened to be there to offer this brutal, dark, basic kind of this is what clothes is, and that what people actually wear in the streets. And maybe let's take it back to that. Like we don't need these pretty dresses and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really interesting point of view. I never thought about it like this as a channel for the overall need, because you see this imagery is coming out of London at the moment, for instance. Like if you look at the recent Palace book, which is all sort of guys, skaters in the estates and stuff, it's really pretty much similar idea. But I think basically with Russian stuff, it just basically was that like it was that gritty that it basically paved the way to the rest. But for you guys, like using your background, do you do it a lot in your designs, or is it just something subconscious for you?
I think it's compulsory, sort of like we can't really not to get away from the background itself, because what we design is what basically based on what we saw in our life. If you put yourself in a white blank space from childhood, you won't be able to design and create anything. You always get the inspiration from something, only what you saw, what you felt, what you dreamed about. So definitely yes, basically all the design aesthetic, I think, personally, talking about myself, is grounded to what I saw during my childhood.
But then at the same time, it's very difficult to call it Soviet, because Soviet is such a huge chunk of history, and Soviet Union was composed of like so many different countries. For example, I come from Kazakhstan, which is also a Russian-speaking country, but it has its own kind of mixture of cultures and different nationalities as well. So each country, each background actually within the Soviet Union can bring something new, and I guess that's why we can see different designers that come from these kind of countries, but they have different aesthetics, I would say. So yeah, it's everyone just finds something that speaks to them from the Soviet period, where we all kind of grew up or were connected to.
Yeah, but you say that, but out of everyone, it was Gosha who made it, who actually really did make it, who made something which was authentic to his country, but also it spoke to people everywhere. So, I don't know, what do you think was his secret to you?
Working with brands like Supreme. Basically. Like a lot of the people who wear Gosha now are like kind of people, like it's turned into one of those, well, it hasn't turned into one of those brands, but it's like all the people who like Supreme are kind of automatically, we like Gosha, we like Palace. It's just kind of become another staple brand that people like because it's associated with other brands that people like. So that helped. But there was nothing like it here at the time anyway when he got big, really, was there. There's like even with the fits of his stuff as well, like all the boxy short fits, really awkward looking. Like no one else was doing that kind of stuff in the market that he was trying to get into, like the streetwear market. Well, not trying to get into the market he ended up in, the streetwear market. Like no one was doing like short, everything was big and oversized rather than boxy and skinny and awkward looking.
So do you reckon it's more basically the fact that he ended up in this more streetwear, skatewear niche rather than...
I think there's a couple of different crowds who wear Gosha. Like the crowd I'm in, yeah, definitely. It's like a big streetwear thing. Like everything sells out and is now resold. Like that's a very big streetwear element of it. But then there's the high end aspect of it as well, because it isn't like basic streetwear like Supreme or whatever. There are layers to it, and it's complex, and it's not just like printed t-shirts and that. So yeah, I think there's a whole range of like target audience, I guess. I don't know.
What do you think, guys?
I don't think it's a bunch of reasons, really. Like, it's all together, just perfect timing. I mean, I don't think Gosha was sitting there and calculating, like, in 10 years. He was just doing what he believed in, obviously. But it just all came together that, Russia kind of got on the map. We opened up a little bit to the rest of the world and let people in and started traveling. And then I think demographics, the people who buy, especially in Russia, it's young kids didn't have money like 50 years ago. They didn't have money to shop. And now they do. And now that's actually a big part of the audience, I think, of Gosha's audience. Because I remember when I was 21, let's say, and I was hanging out with like rappers, skaters, whatever, DJs, and some of my friends started having babies. And we were like joking, imagine this kid will be like, oh, my dad is a DJ, my dad is a skateboarder. And it seemed funny, but now this is actually, these kids, they grew up and they go and buy Gosha, I guess. And that's the like, let's say the marketing part of it, I think. Not the marketing, I don't know, natural kind of evolution of the time. So I think that's a big part of it as well. You can't ignore that. And I don't know, Comme des Garçons probably looked the right direction. And they're clever dudes, as far as I'm aware. So it's it just all worked, and I mean it's great, good for Gosha, because he's been doing it for long before everyone even knew about him. I mean, I've been to his 2008, I think, the rehearsal of his show, probably one of his first shows in Sokolniki. In Moscow.
The stadium one.
Yeah, I didn't know what the hell was like going on.
The first one. I think it was the very first one. Yeah.
I didn't know. I just remember when you emailed me, I was like, okay, I've actually been to this to the rehearsal of that show, but I didn't know what the heck was going on. Like, a bunch of young guys walking along the empty stadium. But I knew that it looked great. I only found out later what it was, so because Gosha was doing it way before. Well, I started doing it anyway. But I remember the feeling. And it's so good that he kept he stayed true to what he was doing 10 years ago, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it was also quite revolutionary in Moscow at the time, I think, what he did. Because fashion, I mean, I guess here as well, but particularly in Russia, fashion was all about, pretty dresses, heels, and all this stuff,
Still is.
It's kind of, still is largely, but back then particularly, then he comes in and he does this like crazy whatever, like guys in the sports stadium. So I think I know that when I interviewed him and talked to him a few times, he keeps using this word energy for what he does. He's really like obsessed with this idea of getting this raw energy, which he finds like in skaters on the street, anywhere he goes, and then channeling it basically. So I think that's what he did with Russian youth culture, pretty much. Because it was that point when you've got basically the new generation grown up who's doing something authentic, and it coincided with the fact that, I mean, it's kind of the Soviet. It's been a long time since the Soviet Union, so it's like the whole this crazy blend of the Soviet stuff and of the new stuff we got from the West, and I think he just basically put it on front very, very well. Yeah, what do you guys think? What works? What doesn't? Do you actually like? I mean, you obviously do really different stuff. Do you actually like what he does? Does it speak to you in any way?
No, it does speak in a form that it's talking about youth. It's talking about the current society. It's talking. He not just deriving the inspiration from faraway land. It's just directly to the person he knows, the people who he meets, whom he loves or whatever. Like, it's all about the current, the now. And he's delivering to the current and now. It speaks to the same audience. He got the inspiration from these people, but he dressed the same people. Actually, the idea of the prices is quite good, so it's affordable for the same society, for the same kids he's inspired from, to give them back. So he's taking the inspiration from them. He's taking quite a lot from them, but he is giving back the clothes, basically, the things, the look. And because there is an interaction between these two worlds. Rather, usually like designer just takes, but he doesn't give back to this like
Yeah.
to this group of people he's taken from.
Do you agree with do you agree with that?
Yeah, completely. Even like how he casts his shows, he, you know, like if say if I really liked, well, I like Gosha. If he asked me to work for him, I'd be well happy with that, you know. So I think the fact that
I hope
he
he watches this. Thanks, no.
if I got casted for one of my favourite designers as like to be in his show, I'd be so happy. And the fact he cast all his models through Instagram and they're all people who like his clothes, you know, that in itself is giving back more than most designers ever do. So,
yeah, it's amazing. This community feel like that they're developing.
Like
it's not just a brand which is detached from reality. It's actually very, very within the reality and with the people he is inspired by. They are actually, yes, as we said, in his show, which is quite amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned that like 20 of people you know.
Yeah, like if I counted everyone I knew that worked for Gosha, it's just like so many people. Like when they all went to France, there was just like a group of mates went basically.
That's quite. I mean, that's a good thing. I think. I don't know if it's just menswear or fashion in general, but I think successful brands are really about community and sort of the group around them these days, because you can see it with Kotweiler, you can see it even with Craig Green, who really like stresses the community all the time. Yeah, you can see it with Palace, of course, because this is literally like a group of mates. And this translates into like industry success, which is really great to see, I think.
And of course with Man.
And of course with Man. I mean, how did we become this already?
Yeah, I think it's it is about the community, but the word behind it is trust. And I think I trust Gosha, even though he's with Comme des Garçons, he's with this massive support, whatever, he became big, and it didn't affect like my feelings towards him. Gosha, if you care, it didn't affect my feelings. But seriously, I still trust it's still the same Gosha, and it's so important, and that's what makes people follow you. I mean, there are so many brands that you just see they just pulled like what's hot right now together, and it's kind of it looks cool, but it has no soul to it. And with Gosha, I can definitely like, well, it sounds cheesy, but I can see him in every picture that I see on the screen. Like, definitely, I trust this label, and it's what's important, I think.
Yeah, nowadays. I mean, it shows, because the hype, basically, if it was just a hype, the hype would go, but the hype you can't sustain the hype for years without actually...
Well, that's interesting, that subject that you touch on, the subject of hype of the post-Soviet thing, because it is a hype, and how long can you kind of go on it? And so I can see already, we talked with Dennis, who I work with, and so Gosha started using international models, and it's becoming something else already. You can see it's not all about Serp and Molot. It's becoming more international now, and I think again, clever people understand that you can't just sell Russia like for another 5 years. It's just, it won't work.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because Grace Wiles-Bonnet, who we had a panel on last week, she just won LVMH prize, and in a way, I mean, it's completely different worlds, but it's a similar model in some strange way, because she started from a really localized, her own, based on her background point of view, and then she took it to a more sort of globalized way, because she had more diverse casting, she had more diverse like European style pieces, and I mean same with Gosha in a way. He started from very Russian, very like micro type of stuff, and now he does something which is more inclusive.
So, definitely. I mean, it still looks it doesn't lose the integrity.
It still looks pretty Russian to me. I mean, as we touch the point of Wittmann, and I think Gosha's stylist Lotte Volkova, she has she has big influence in the fashion industry at the moment, in general, I guess, with her vision, and so do you think this whole, the post-Soviet hype as well, you know, it's grew out partly out of this trio, Gosha, Lotte Volkova and Demna Gvasalia, who kind of kept talking about the whole post-Soviet heritage they had and background. So do you think in any sense it influenced him, the way that he is part of that crew?
It influenced Gosha?
Gosha, yeah. I thought so. I kind of thought so when looked at the last season because it was like much less sportswear, more sort of tailored to
For Winter 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot darker than his other ones.
Yeah. Although on the other hand, he kind of got back to sportswear again.
It's actually very hard to say if it was the other way around. Maybe, possibly, quite possibly.
Okay, yeah.
But now with this collection, yes, you can see some influence. I think it's actually, I think it's just like an exchange. It's like a dialogue between these two brands because they're so intertwined together at the moment. Actually, Gosha worked for the Vatman, and it's just feels like the same community, to be honest. Sometimes, as if they are part of the same community.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's quite a good thing. Kind of making a community in the fashion world. It's just not always about that. I mean, we kind of touched upon this point a little bit before because, of course, you mentioned that you discovered Gosha through a video rather than clothes. So storytelling for him is obviously a big part of the brand. And in fact, I think if not Mitch and Adrian the offer, he probably wouldn't even be a fashion designer. Because I think he mentioned that he was doing it all himself in Moscow. He was really tired of it, and he didn't have any production was a mess and so on. And so he was like, "I'll just make videos and photos. I quit this fashion business." But then he met Adrian Yoffa basically, and he convinced him to stay to the result of today. So yeah, do you think in contemporary world storytelling is something which is integral to the brand, which you should have, which is the way you do stuff these days?
It does, because the collection shouldn't be just a rail of merchandise hanging down. It basically, each collection is personal to the designer, and each designer tries to tell a story through the collection. That's why it used to be people think about just the merchandise rail. Nowadays it's more important to speak, to tell, to hear this voice and to tell this voice through the pieces, and to kind of get out from this this cooperative world of seeing the clothing as just a piece of
cloth,
literally. And it's sort of kind of internal fight maybe with mass market with Zara's and so on, where they kind of they deviated closer to the level of just a two days piece and then goes to the garbage. It shouldn't be like that. And for instance, for designer point of view, it's more than just clothes.
So you buy into the vision and the story rather than the piece. I think to me, basically, it really works that way these days because of the media as well, because it's so oversaturated with brands that no magazine would want a story just about another young brand. They basically want what is it about? What does it say about contemporary world and stuff? So yeah. So, I mean, Dasha, you work with sort of storytelling quite a bit as well, right?
Yeah, and to me, I think it goes down to two questions, not just one, not what I do, but why I do it as well. And I think Gosha knows why he does it, and you can see it from his books and photos. And it's not just I make clothes, it's he tells why he does it, and it's fascinating. And to me, it's the same. And it took me some time to find, I mean, I'm still in the process. I don't feel like I've arrived and that's what I do. But I'm exploring through my collections as well what I do and trying to find the answer. But it's definitely, it's important to know why you do it, not just I'm a fashion designer. That's what I do. So I think, that's a big part of his success. It's integrity again. If he wasn't, as you said, if he wasn't a fashion designer, he would be as successful as, maybe not but as successful as a filmmaker or photographer or, I don't know,
who knows what else. Yeah, he shoots all his imagery himself, makes films himself. It's pretty great to see.
He has a vision, from that first show in Sokolniki. I mean, you could see that this guy knows what he's doing. Not many people have that. That's the bottom line.
So, Dom, do you follow sort of? I mean, I'm just interested in sort of how Gosha's fans, for them, what's more important, the clothes or the story around it?
Oh, that's difficult. That depends why you like it, really. Doesn't it? That depends how you got into it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a huge question, but
I
more
mean,
like, you know, what do people buy? Do people buy just clothes, or do people go and buy books?
It depends what the type of person is, really. I would say probably most of the people who are in it for the clothes are just in it for the clothes. But I guess there's probably a couple of people in the kind of same group as me that are more into it for the artistic, you know, the overall picture. But probably most of the people who like it are just like, they like the image. You know, it's almost like it gives them an identity, doesn't it? Because like a lot of like the people in this kind of into like streetwear and that are into it because it gives them an identity, or it makes them someone. And I guess they don't need the story around that, as long as they look like they're something.
Okay.
But it's weird. But
yeah, that's a good point actually, because that's his demographics, and I mean youth. It's normally when you have a identity crisis. I mean, I definitely had one, so it's easier to buy into something because it's you need it like for survival almost. Sometimes it depends on the personality, but that's a big part of it. So I think it's.
So like, do you wear Gosha stuff a lot? Like, because I remember you told me last time about the reaction of people when you walk down the street in a like t-shirt with a Russian flag.
Yeah. People do give you weird looks sometimes.
Yeah.
No, I guess I like. Oh, that's tricky. I might have just dug myself into a hole. No, I like. I guess I like it as more than just an image, because I've found out about him not through something that people would see on me and therefore look at me differently through. But then I guess it grew into like, I do like the image that he, you know, I do like the whole kind of atmosphere he gives off and that, but it's not like completely shallow. Oh, I don't know. I've never really thought about it actually.
Well, I guess it's not what you, on a daily basis, it's not what you
No,
really dig into.
The power of the brand, they can make you wear whatever they want, like Russian flag, Chinese flag, whatever is, you know, whatever is.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like as well. It's like, it's this, particularly, I mean, in the political situation we're in at the moment with Russia, which everybody knows, like it's pretty conservative, it's pretty hardcore what's happening there at the moment. But so basically subverting this whole thing with putting the Russian flag on a t-shirt and selling it to kids in the States, in the UK, everywhere. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Fun.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, yeah. And I don't remember, somebody told me, I think one of my friends just said basically that he was growing up in France. All his like him and all his mates, they all wanted to be American. They sort of were really into American culture and sort of like wake up, look at the mirror, think everyone be American. And now it's just basically interesting that Gosha might have, what he might have done is that he, I mean, gave those kids some interest in the place and the idea that they want to look in a way like Eastern Europe or Russian, and I find this quite hilarious to be honest.
Yeah, it did give a bit of a fresh air to fashion in general, I think, and not just young fashion, but because I think Western countries a bit exhausted themselves, and Russia is still like, we're just in the beginning. We don't have history of fashion whatsoever.
Yeah, completely.
So we're so fascinating. We must be so fascinating to look at, because we're just in the very beginning of that process that the UK has been through many years ago. We didn't have punk. Probably this is our punk, actually. We didn't have many things that the Western countries had. So it's an exciting country to be born in, I think.
It's very ironic, actually, because if you think about it, many like young people from post-Soviet generation, they actually were obsessed with the West. They were obsessed with especially America and what was going on there. And a lot of the clothing we see, actually, which you see in the Gosha Rubchinskiy collections, are inspired by the obsession with America. So I think it's quite ironic for him as well to see that what he's creating is actually called post-Soviet, which is itself heavily based on things that were found in the West. And everyone was looking at that and like hoping to get this kind of
I mean, I completely agree, because he references 90s constantly in almost every collection.
I mean, even the collaborations he's done. He's been
Yeah.
with Sergio Tacchini, isn't he?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, it's
so
like
90s. Like that doesn't really get
Yeah,
any more
very
90s than
90s.
Sergio Tacchini.
so the whole so the whole thing, yeah, basically is about how he was like reading 90s Russian magazines and about this crazy world of a Russian market in the 90s, which was overloaded with like Chinese knockoffs of Adidas tracksuits. So this is all there, yeah. Even like misspelled, yeah. So yeah, I think it's a really good tradition to looking at the show actually. So shall we look at the show?
Why not?
So I think it was quite surprising for everyone. I think everybody mentioned that starting with suits, starting with the tailoring
I'm
is
excited for the suits.
yeah. It's so. What do you guys think when they think of suits? They're really really ill-fitting suits,
Yeah,
but in
they're just
in
so cool.
delivery.
That's the charm, though, isn't it? They're like
Yeah.
ugly cool. I like that's like a lot of his stuff, though. Like it's not
Yeah.
like aesthetically pleasing, but it has an aesthetic. And people
They are
like
like bratki
Yeah,
kind of
they're
thing.
like-
It's not like tailored, nice Savile Row kind of suit, right? It's
It's a basically ill-fitting 90s suit
90s
of,
bandit
petty criminal,
kind of,
petty
yeah,
Russian
hooligan,
criminal, yeah.
whatever.
With a
suit.
chain over it as well.
On a naked body as
Yeah.
well, it's, with the trainers.
So yeah, so basically I thought that those sort of Philo and what was it again? I don't even know.
It's
the name of
collaboration.
it.
it was Fila, Kappa, and Sergio Tacchini.
So basically it was a legit
yeah, it was proper,
it's
proper
like, I don't
90s
even know that.
throwback, yeah.
So basically it was a proper like legit collaboration,
Yes,
which is quite fascinating to be honest, because it's it's a work you should do. You go to those brands, you look at the heritage, you remake the stuff, which is I think is great. Because when I was looking at that, I thought about Batman and how they did lots of. It's just like just a funny joke, pretty much like the whole DHL and or whatever else they did, all the branded thing. But the fact that it's a collaboration, I think, is quite interesting. And I heard that they say that those probably would sell.
I don't know if it's good for the brands. It's definitely good for Gosha, but it feels like they all jumping on the wagon of Gosha, really, which is great. But I feel like in this show he's bigger than Fila. It feels like that, right? Even though they've been there for ages and ages, and it's nice. It's a nice.
Yeah, but it's like File and stuff. Those 90s brands, they kind of had a minor revival in the recent year, I'd say. Like people started wearing it again, like in a sort of weird, semi-ironic way.
Yeah, it's odd. I wonder who reached out to who for the collaboration.
Yeah, that's quite interesting.
Interesting.
So could we go a little bit up again? It's kind of like after the shoots. So I think it's cool he's doing tracksuits, like full-on tracksuits, because I think tracksuit is such a like proper
Russian
today.
thing.
It's proper 90s Russian thing, but also it's really today. I feel this tracksuit in the contemporary menswear is really like happening at the moment. What you see with like Kotweiler, what you see with Nadir, of course, yeah.
It is very relevant to to his original audience, I would say. For example, that's why it's surprising to see the suits, because they're completely new, and it's probably maybe trying to speak to the new audience as well, to introduce new people to the brand.
For me, it's a part of storytelling. The whole idea of the storytelling. That's where the suit's coming from. It's kind of like the sort of like different characters from the 90s, from what we saw, and they were not present before, but they should be there at some point because they were in this time. So it's kind of like this is the storytelling, starting with this like sort of like bandit style, and then goes into this rough boys, tough boys. It's all like interacts together through the idea of like skill, like love, equality, all this like youth to it.
Maybe it's also since it's in Italy.
Yeah, I think it's a kind
Really?
of a reference to Pichi in a
It's
way.
like tribute to.
Because you have to
to
have tailoring, right? And it's
Yeah.
just like a...
You cannot have tailoring in
But that's,
Italy.
yeah, but that again ties in very well with the Russian, because Russians were obsessed with Italian suits. So
Yeah,
if
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
wanted to have Italian suit, it must be Italian.
It's all Italian fashion.
Even if
in
it's
Russia.
fake.
Yeah, even if it's fake, you just must say made in Italy somewhere.
luxury stuff. Yeah, and in the way it's kind of... Yeah, that's like is it velvet, the silver
Yeah,
one?
crushed velvet. He did a crushed velvet suit for Spring Summer 15. I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Didn't-
royal blue.
Wow.
I
So
like
cool. Yeah.
It's like sofa covers fabric kind of.
Yeah.
So Russian, the velvet.
So do you think like
Russian.
who would... I don't know, who do you see any
Who would
of
wear
the-
it? You wanna
I'd
wear
wear
it?
that.
You'd pull it
Yeah.
off really
I'd
well. I
wear
think.
the blue velvet suit, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm tempted by the first suit and here. Just,
It would look good on you.
cool.
You have
Yeah,
a chain
yeah.
already.
Yeah, without the t-shirt and everything. I'm quite excited by the eyewear, to be honest.
Oh yeah, glasses
Yeah.
are pretty great.
It's like rave reference, I guess. Raving.
Yeah, to me it really looks like
Yeah.
rave. And also those like sort of yin and yang ACD prints to me also look pretty rave. What I find quite funny is that I think the logo is sort of like a Gosha Rubchinskiy logo, right? I mean, you can see it in tiny, like on a tracksuit, and you can see, yeah.
No.
Oh no,
No,
that's actually
That's
not.
a
On
Sanjay one,
on
yeah.
the black one, he has some sort of like, or is it not?
Yes, that's the one.
Yes.
Yeah. Kind of looks like palace skateboards to me a little bit. Not palace, sorry, polo skates. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I
With
see
the-
that. Yeah,
But it's
that's
his
quite a
initials,
logo.
right? I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm more excited about this Europe
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
going on.
yeah.
Yes.
It's
So if
the
you
one
go,
before that.
yeah, if you go up a little bit,
This
yeah,
one.
this one.
Because if you can see, it actually has a question mark in the
Yeah,
end,
you're-
and it's also in your rainbow colors, which is quite exciting. So I think it's like seeing these subtle political messages as well now,
Yeah.
which I don't think were much present before.
Yeah, I think
Because
it's
this
really
is
good
very
to see
relevant
that,
right
yeah.
now as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. I'm definitely interested to see how the brand will evolve because of what I said. Because you can't do the Russia thing every
Yeah.
season, right? And it's interesting to see all these subtle, well, or not that subtle, I don't know, new messages that come across, and new looks and new looks being introduced in the collection.
But it's also very organic actually for him because he grew as a brand, and he's now opening up to a lot of other people around him in Europe, in America. He's traveling a lot as well. So I mean, he has many different friends all over the world right now, and it's just, I think he just draws inspiration from these young people as well who are excited about Russia, but he's excited about them, and it's just all together. That's why we see more, probably maybe European influence right now.
Because
Yeah.
definitely this it's a very skater thing, obsession with Italian. I spoke to my friend. He works in an advertisement agency here in London, and he traveled to somewhere like San Diego, whatever. And he was looking at the skateboarders scene there, and he was like, "They're all obsessed with this Italian cashmere. What's that about?" And so then you see it on catwalk. So it is a kind of trickle up theory as well, a little bit. So he does, yeah. But it's again true to his philosophy to get like inspired by the people you hang out with, because it's his friends probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it looked really interesting, this collection. I think it's much bigger than his previous ones. I think it's quite a lot of looks, and they're really diverse. Like they're really different because you have the tailoring, you have this tracksuit, you have sort of more sort of fine pieces. You have all the variety of fabrics. So yeah, I was quite impressed, to be honest. Because, yeah, what do you think, guys?
It's
Do
a
you like what
mixed
you
bag
see?
of stuff. There's a couple of them up a bit that look a bit like the early RAF stuff, like 1995, like that one there, with like the shirt coming under the oversized sweater. It's the proper like awkward schoolboy thing that RAF used to go for like 20 years ago. But,
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
about 20 years,
Yeah.
fashion cycle, here we are. And yeah, I feel like that one shapes are kind of repeating the rough a little bit, but just more, like the whole street thing
Yeah.
is kind of
these two are
big,
like
but
proper RAF.
Yeah. No, I mean, but his like Raf Simons' work is so much like it's so ingrained into the sort of fashion DNA now that it's you can sort of see it in all menswear, but also
it's difficult not to.
Yeah, it's really difficult not to, yeah. But also I think he had this book, what is the third sex? Adolescent Extremes. Yeah, the book about like teenage
fourth, rough, you mean?
Yeah,
fourth sex.
Yeah, fourth sex.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, I hope we didn't embarrass ourselves. but well, anyway, this book is like really like in demand now. You can only buy it for like 150
It's 400 quid on
400
eBay.
quid, exactly.
Man, it's
like,
ridiculous.
and you see when you look into the magazines, like a lot of the stuff comes from exactly there. So, and I think it's quite poignant actually that Gosha is showing pretty much same place, same time as Raf Simons is showing now. He might be really pleased with that.
With the Russian twist.
With the Russian twist, yeah. I quite like the Russian Renaissance t-shirt.
I think suits are my favorite. I would like to have a boyfriend who wear that.
So could we go to the end? Maybe I look at the end. Because yeah, it's a real variety of stuff.
The peacocks are quite odd.
But what I liked, my friend, one of my friends actually, he's a designer as well, Maxim Bashkayev from Outlaw Moscow. He put a hilarious thing on Facebook yesterday because he ended up in this provincial town, for some reason Tatarstan, in Nabizhny Chelny. He was like, I didn't even have to look at pictures from Gosha's show because it was enough to look sort of around me because all I could see is ill-fitting suits and buzz cuts and chains and on naked chests and sort of high-waisted shorts with socks stuffed underneath. So after I didn't really change much.
I was about to say the same. That I came back from Serbia today.
Oh, yeah.
You see these looks on the streets, and it's so ridiculous to see how what is considered to be low fashion, let's call it, is high fashion now. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of articles about how ugly is new beautiful and blah blah blah, but I don't know. I personally don't mind it. I'd rather see that than glitz and diamonds and pleated sleeves and you know what I mean. Like it resonates with me better than other stuff.
Yeah, I think the whole mixture, like this, there's no hierarchy pretty much anymore. Like you can wear anything, like combine it with whatever, and anything goes. But also, I'm with you on that. I think for our generation, for younger people, it works.
It's cool. I mean, I find it a little bit disturbing and unsettling when I see Russian it girls wearing Gosha Ovetmon because it's cool when all they used to wear is like gowns and I don't know, sexy stuff, and now they're all like you know, doing this
that's pretty hilarious
underground look. It's funny, but
I think what is interesting as well that the show was only a half of the main event. I think there was an exhibition as well which had the film which Gosha made. So the film actually blew me away a little bit because it shows in a way, it complements the show but also shows a really different direction because it's all it was inspired by Pier Paolo Pasolini's work. I mean because it's Italy, so he wanted to kind of reference one of the classic masters but not the obvious one here. Sort of a more troubled, more disturbing story, and it's like this really pristine black and white, really interesting film, which he did in collaboration with Renata Litvinova, who's quite a famous Russian director and actress, screenwriter. So, what do you think of that, guys? I don't know if you had a chance to see. Does it work for you there? What does it bring a new dimension to the whole thing? What do you think?
I haven't seen the film, to be honest. This is the first time watching it. So I don't really know, to be honest. I don't know anything about it.
I mean, it looks gorgeous, I think. I haven't seen the whole thing, but I think it's a very interesting. Yeah, it adds a lot to the collection as well. It's interesting to know that he's inspired and likes Pasolini, which is very cult director.
Yeah,
But he also
cult,
mentioned
yeah.
before that he likes Gus Van Sant, so it's actually not that surprising because they have a lot in common. I think it's
I mean, I think it's really great that he sort of talks about it. He always references art and his stuff. I mean, he did this little capsule collection based on Timur Novikov's, the
Great.
sun
Yeah.
drawings and stuff.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I really like that he, again, it's collaborative spirit, but also it's bringing the other artistic worlds into his own, which I think is great.
I don't know. I was sent this link just an hour before
Yeah.
coming here. I don't know. I don't see much of Gosha in here, and it's just like more of Renata probably.
Yeah.
Which I'm a big fan of her work, but these two together just doesn't work for me, to be
work for
honest.
you.
I don't get it. Like, I don't understand why.
Watching this for the first time now, this is nothing like what I'd expect from a film to relate to a Gosha collection.
Yeah, I don't
Exactly,
see him
yeah.
in there. It's just a mixed message to me. Maybe it's just my subjective opinion, but
It's too crisp and clean.
Oh, it was him as a soldier. Yeah, in a way, you're right. It's really like different to the.
I mean, it's a
What
beautiful
is-
picture.
Yeah.
But how is it Gosha?
But this is beautiful because Renata and Gosha are now, I mean, I don't know if they were friends for a long time or not, but now they seem to be really close to each other. So it's again the same thing. He is influenced by the people he loves and knows right now, which is quite interesting to see this combination of Renata, who is almost always like Chanel style,
Yeah.
and now she's actually collaborating with Gosha, who is absolutely probably opposite to Chanel, I would say,
Yeah.
in everything. So I mean, for me, it's exciting to see how it can develop, and I'm sure it's not the first. I mean, it's not the last collaboration between these two.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Italy has a big Italy and the PT has a large part to play in it because this whole like very black and white 30s Italian style. So I don't know if he staged this show. I mean, of course, it would be a different show if he staged it elsewhere, like in Paris. Probably he would never come up with this.
No, he'll definitely come up with something different because
Yeah.
it's directly taken from the space, from the
Yeah.
place where he was exhibiting this season.
But they did a very good job creating the Soviet style kind of atmosphere there.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Even though it's in Italy, it's like, I mean, it's very difficult to say that it's in Italy.
It's like you probably used it two places or one place which doesn't have like any Renaissance sculptures. It was this factory and he used
In
it.
Florence, probably is quite
Yeah.
a challenge.
So yeah, I mean, it's to me it's very interesting to see where he's moving.
There's new dimension, something new
Yeah.
coming into it, but it's good. Each brand has to grow, and there's supposed to be something new coming into.
We also don't know much at the moment actually about that movie, what they actually wanted to kind of say with it. I mean, we saw the title,
Yeah, I
The
mean,
Day of My
kinda
Death, I think
like-
it's called. So, I mean, I think we should probably find
We
out
need to
a bit
see
more.
the whole movie to understand the whole idea.
Yeah.
So actually it relates to. I mean, I have a quote from him here, which says, the questions I'm asking are: what is Europe now? Are countries together, separated? What is global and what is unique? So in a way, it kind of sends us back to this like Europe sweatshirt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's deeper than we expect.
The Europe sweatshirt is very interesting piece
Yeah.
of the collection.
Yeah, that's actually what I would like.
Centerpiece.
What I like. It's one of my favorite points about the whole narrative. I guess is this because, I mean, it's just something we should be all talking about now. I guess it's great to see him reaching out from not just us and them, but us as a whole, which is really interesting to see.
So interesting that how his clothes, which is quite limited in terms of details
Yeah.
and shapes, are making us to talk about so many questions, and we have
Yeah.
seen this like sweatshirt, which is quite basic item of clothing, to be honest. We have like a small like 7 letters word like with a question mark, but there's so much clarity and ideas put into such a small thing, which is fascinating about the design, rather than you're not overwhelmed with something
Yeah.
over the top like here and there. We have everything in place, rather than have one small thing which gives people to talk about it quite a lot. It raises up a lot of questions. This is the clarity, and this is genius of the designer himself.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the fact that we've been talking about it for almost an hour
Yeah, just like
shows
seven
and that we
letters.
still have
and
something
let's
to
talk.
say, shows that
I mean, that's what,
there is
yeah.
something to say. So, what do you guys think? Where do you see Gosha moving next? Or where would you like him to move next? What's your predictions?
Move back to Moscow.
He's your, I mean, to show
He's
in
kind of
Moscow, you
everywhere
mean?
now,
It would be interesting to.
It would be good if he
to
moved his
show-
show back, but
Oh yeah, it would be actually pretty great.
to Moscow.
Yeah.
And
Revisit, yeah.
Bring it back home. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious now after this video. I'm like, I don't know what to expect now. He will definitely expand. It looks like that, as what we've discussed already. Like the collection got bigger, looks got more diverse. But I don't know. I'm a bit like, keep the old Gosha, like keep the clarity of the message. Because I'm always like, when brands start to grow, sometimes they lose themselves, basically. Probably won't be the case, but I don't know.
Well, even in this collection, it's like if you look back to his older stuff, it was a lot of basic with like printed T-shirts and that. There's like 3 printed T-shirts in this. Like, it's just he's evolved into like a lot more complex.
It's growing up.
Kind of,
kinda,
yeah.
But I don't know if
I would definitely
I like-
love to see more political messages in the
Yeah,
future,
interesting.
because I
Things
think
like that.
actually fashion, a lot of the times people say that fashion and politics have nothing in common, and I think it's absolutely not true, because I mean we all live in the same society, for everyone it is very relevant, and what's happening right now is also very relevant. And it's already interesting to see that he has this little bit subtle question mark on that sweatshirt, and I mean I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, I'll second that. I'm definitely a big fan of fashion as a communicational tool, like literally.
Mhm.
So when fashion speaks to people, because it can be very shallow, but it can be also very powerful and make people think. And we're in the time, I feel like we need to readjust some things in our society, and some things stopped working. And it's nice that he actually uses his collection to make people speak, because he could have easily done fine without it. Just make another set of Gosha Rubchinskiy t-shirts and be good, you know. It's great.
I mean, it's just one, actually, if you think about it, it's just one piece in the collection, I guess, which is like really, this has this subtle political message. I mean, if you take it away, it could be still obviously very Gosha.
Yeah.
But he still decided to put it there. Because the Russian Renaissance is very similar to his original message, like this a little bit making fun, making fun of the Russian element.
Mhm.
But that sweatshirt is actually something else, something new, I think, which we didn't see before.
I think maybe he's trying to influence people who wear his clothes, because like a lot of the people who will be looking through this wouldn't give like a second thought to the EU referendum. Like a 16-year-old, maybe he's trying to like show that it is important, or just like make people aware of it that wouldn't be normally.
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously, again, because of the EU referendum, it's very relevant, but also at the same time, I think because it's done in different colors, it's probably also to do with gay rights and these questions. I mean, the question
Yeah,
mark.
of course, yeah.
And what's going on, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, basically, yeah, I'd agree, it's great to see him grow and explore different things to what he's been doing previously, because I feel what he's been doing previously was more kind of, you could just see the trajectory quite, and this went like off rails somewhere, which is great. I think it's very exciting. So yeah, I don't know, I think he did well, so let's give him a round of applause.
Congrats, Gosha!
Yeah.